All right, guys, welcome back to Elevate Paso, a program designed to elevate our mind, our body, and our soul, and to feature the best of our city. Today, we have a very interesting story, a very interesting interview with a great story behind it. We're going to be speaking with Dave Marino. He is the chair of the El Paso Libertarian Party, and we're going to be talking about the involvement of the party in our city and a little bit of the principles behind it. But before we do this, let me first apologize for the studio. Due to social distances, we had to play a little bit around with it, and it looks a bit homey, but we're doing what we can with it. Dave, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my first interview, so
really,
first actual television interview. At least.
Well, this is probably the easiest interview to start with. This is the most laid-back program to be in.
Great way to get started.
Tell me about your involvement with the Libertarian Party, brother.
I've been a libertarian probably since 2014. When Ron Paul's exit speech from Congress really just got me interested in the whole liberty movement. Mm-hmm. I just became an actual activist in the party this past November and went from there. My mission right now is just to educate people on the principles of liberty and how it could benefit us as a society. That's really my primary mission.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I truly feel that not enough people are aware that there is more options than the two main parties out there. Can you explain a little bit more about these principles of the Libertarian Party to me?
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know that there is a third choice. There's actually more than three choices. But the Libertarian Party is the fastest growing political party in the country, and as the other two old parties lose ground, we're gaining ground, and we're the largest of the third parties. I think it's because we stand on the principles of liberty. We have a really simple platform that individual liberty trumps state power. It's all revolves around what we call the non-aggression principle, and that says that nobody has a right to violate you through aggression, whether it be theft, fraud, or physical aggression. So that's our primary philosophy, and that means either another individual or even an institution such as government should not be able to force that kind of aggression upon you. And that's kind of what the philosophy of the Libertarian Party revolves all around that.
So it sounds to me like it's seeking to give government a much more limited role.
Oh yes. Throughout time, we've actually become the party that stands up for smaller government more than any other party in the country. Our goal is to shrink the size and power of government, and as the government continues throughout time and through every crisis, decides to expand the power of government more and more, we are the party that's standing up and saying that they should not be able to inflict this kind of aggression upon us.
Tell me a little bit more of how you see the government's role. What should the government's role be?
The government's role primarily, as a libertarian, we believe the government's role primarily should be to protect individuals' rights, their civil liberties. The liberties, they don't grant us rights. Our rights are granted by nature. I like to tell everybody that we're all born libertarians. As an infant, we're free to do whatever is within our capabilities. It's as our capabilities grow that our freedoms begin to be restricted. And that's when you either become a libertarian or you become something else. So.
Right. So you've been in El Paso how long now?
2006, full time.
Really? And right off the bat, you started to get involved in the political scene here?
No. I actually didn't really get involved in the political scene in El Paso until recently, until the past 6 months or so. I started really looking into it seriously.
But you have been active in the party itself?
Oh, yes. And in the Libertarian Party, I've been pretty active.
And so tell me a little bit about what your projections and what your intention is for the party in El Paso County.
Oh, my real intention is just to educate people on the Libertarian Party, what our principles are, and how most people are libertarians. Just some people don't feel that it's the right philosophy for government. I want to try to show that it can be the right philosophy for government. So my real purpose is to educate and grow the party within El Paso to actually be a competitor versus the two old parties.
How is the size of the party in El Paso?
It's pretty small right now just because there hasn't been a real active person like me
right.
to try to spread the message.
Well, it's good to know that you're out there now. Tell me a little bit about your letter. You put a letter out to El Pasoans and the city council. It was an open comment letter. And in it, we addressed the COVID-19 situation. Can you go into that a little bit for me?
Yeah, I just felt that with the violations that are happening of our civil liberties and our constitutional liberties, that it was my place as a libertarian to take a stand in defense of liberty. I can't sit back and look at these things happening without voicing, becoming the voice of liberty for this movement. And the park situation is when they said the parks were off limits, I think that's where I crossed the line for me. Everybody, the original order said it was telling us what we can and cannot leave our house for, and I took offense to that as it was. But then you looked in section 6 and it had all the exemptions. You can go for a hike, you can go to the park, you can go for a walk. So I was really, if you looked at the exemptions, you really weren't restricted all that much at all. But just the fact that they were grabbing the power to say what we could and couldn't leave our house for bothered me. But then I was explaining it to somebody, it's so easy to take exemptions away once the law is written.
Right.
And it wasn't until it was the next day after I was explaining that to somebody where they took the exemption away about going to the park and going for the hikes and stuff. And that's where I was, what exemptions are they going to take away next?
Yeah. So Dave, I feel a bit conflicted here. I completely stand behind you on our liberties, the protection of the liberty, but I also feel that there does need to be some sort of protection on this pandemic spreading further. How is it that we're able to draw the line? In a perfect world, we leave it up to the individual and their responsibility to keep social distance, to be able to go about their daily task without infringing on somebody else's space and so on. But we're not in a perfect world, and a lot of people aren't as socially responsible as they should be. Where do we draw that line between the government infringing on us and the government actually protecting us?
Well, in libertarian terms, you have a right to self-defense.
Right.
So the problem, and I think the real controversy with a virus is you don't know whether that person has the virus or not.
Right.
So you don't know whether you have the right of self-defense because you don't know if you're actually being aggressed upon by another person. So it's that unknown which as a libertarian I have to side with the individual liberty, because our philosophy is your rights end where mine begin. So you don't have, you are free to do whatever you will as long as it doesn't interfere on my liberty. As soon as it interferes with my liberty, then we have a problem. The thing about a virus is you don't know if there is any aggression happening as you approach somebody else. And just that unknown factor leaves the door wide open for violations of all of our civil liberties and all of our civil rights. So we have to draw the line somewhere. And my advice is to be responsible for yourself, to take precautions to protect yourself as you would during any flu season or any time else, except maybe take it to extreme. Like I preach liberty. I preach that these laws should not exist. The government should not have intervened. They shouldn't have shut these businesses down and stuff like that. People are like, well, you just don't care. And I'm like, no, I do care. I've barely left my house in 3 weeks because I do care. Right. I don't know if I'm a healthy carrier, like they've said. That's a valid reason. So I'm taking responsibility as a citizen to protect those out there that are immune compromised. Mm-hmm. I'm not immune compromised, but I want to protect them.
And again, I do completely agree on how there does need to be that need for business and self-responsibility. I mean, it does seem to have, we're going to be paying the price for this for a long time. This has really affected us.
And I feel the price that we're going to pay for this economically is going to be more than the price we paid by the virus.
I agree.
If you look at the suicide rates during the downturn of economies, when people expect, when breadwinners and families lose their jobs and they can no longer provide for their families, a lot of people that's their self-identity. When they lose that identity, they don't feel like they exist anymore. Right. And the suicide rates go through the roof during a bad economy. So how many are we going to lose like that already? How many have we lost?
I agree. And again, the effects of the economy are so heartfelt. But where is it that we are able to determine, because there is that unknown factor of whether somebody is coming with something near you, where is it? There has to be a role beyond just saying you're responsible for yourself, because we are very well aware that not everybody is responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that we could determine, okay, there does need to be some sort of sheriff in town?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
The consequences perhaps shouldn't be as severe, but there does need to be something. So where are we drawing that line?
But we in the Army, we used to call it mass punishment. And that's kind of what we're seeing now is government just doing mass punishment thing. I would say people that violate the social distancing thing, it's an individual case by case basis. It shouldn't be a law. It should be, if somebody comes and coughs in your face, I mean, that's obviously, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It wouldn't be like invasion of privacy. Disturbing the peace. It would be a disturbing the peace. Or a threat, it's threatening another person. Beyond that, your individual rights should be protected. You should be protecting yourself. You should maintain social distancing from people. You should wear your mask, wear your gloves, protect yourself, wash your clothes and your materials when you get home, and do everything that you need to do to protect yourself from this virus. My advice at very early on in this pandemic, I told people, if you are caring for somebody that is immune compromised or elderly, if you're going to do your shopping, go do your shopping late at night when the store is fairly empty, so you don't have that kind of contact. And make sure that you wash your hands, wash your clothes, even wash off the groceries before you enter that person's house to deliver their groceries to them. Right. And if you are one of those people that are immune compromised, try to stay home as much as you possibly can.
And so in this letter, we asked for the government to kind of rescind the stay home work stay order. Can we expand on that a bit?
I think it should either rescind it or at least remove any mention of enforcement, for whether it's fines or jail time or anything like that. So it would basically become an advisory order. So the order is great because it's telling people exactly what they need to do to flatten the curve or to prevent the spread of the disease to a point where it could be extreme. Yeah. But the fact that they put enforcement behind it is where it becomes a violation of our civil liberties.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how idealistic it is to have an order without a penalty. How idealistic it is for us to think that people will actually abide by it and not compromise others.
Well, I think the majority of El Pasoans are abiding by it. From what I've seen, like I said, I haven't really left the house a whole lot in 3 weeks, but from what I've seen, I think El Pasoans, I mean, I've been here since 2006 for 13 years. Yeah. And from what I love about El Paso is the compassion and acceptance within the community. Every community is going to have its bad eggs, but this community is one of the best communities. I've been around the world. Yeah. And El Paso is one of the greatest communities I've ever lived in because it's just this massive melting pot of all these different cultures with the border and Fort Bliss and everything that goes on here in UTEP, and it's just a massive melting pot of different cultures, and we get along so great. There's such compassionate people. And I find it hard to believe that there's so many people out there that deserve to be locked in their homes by threat of law, right? By threat of jail time and fines in a city as good as El Paso.
And really, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm simply trying to find some sort of balance in this or some sort of reason in this, because I do agree that it was a bit extreme to where the consequences for the economy are going to be dire. It's going to be a bit more than perhaps we could have handled. But moving on to something else, I mean, aside from that, everybody should stay safe at home, take proper measures. This isn't something to take lightly.
As I also stated in my letter, I expressed that everybody should be doing those things.
Right. But Dave, tell me what's next for the party in our county. What are we doing? What's planned? Do you have any events? Do you have anything going on? Well, I mean,
what
yeah.
did we really plan?
Hopefully, yeah.
As a party in the state of Texas, we just had our convention, of course, was canceled. It was due. We were supposed to have our convention in McAllen, Texas, on the 16th, and we just got a letter from the governor that said we get to move it to some date after this crisis is over, which was great. So we're still going to get to have our state convention.
Beautiful.
Which is like our primary.
Yeah.
The two old parties, they have their primary elections. We elect by conventions. So that was good news. I had monthly meetings set up for the party here in El Paso. Of course, those are on hold. Or I'm thinking I might try to move them to a Zoom meeting or something if they get those security things fixed.
Where can people get more information on the party? Is there a page they could visit?
The national page is lp.org. The state of Texas is lptexas.org. MarinoforElPaso.com, that's my page, and I'm also Libertarian Dave on YouTube. So I do a lot of live. Matter of fact, I'm doing a live stream right after this. So. And we do a call in, so you can call in and ask me questions and stuff. So.
Beautiful, Dave. Before we let you go, any last words? Anything you want us to know?
I had a note here. I wanted to say that no system is perfect, especially when it comes to a government system. The Libertarian Party is not an anarchist party. We actually believe that government has a limited role in society. We just believe that, and history has showed us that a freer a society is, the more prosperous it has the ability to become, and usually is. So as the United States being the freest country in the world, I've seen as years go by, the government continues to infringe on more and more of our liberties. And so we actually are becoming less and less free. And as that happens, we become more dependent on government and less dependent on ourselves, which decreases our prosperity. So the Libertarian Party is the one party out there that believes in smaller government and more power to the entrepreneur and to the individual and its ability and their ability to prosper.
It sounds very ideal. I definitely sympathize with it. I like it. It seems very ideal.
I put it on a scale. I say you have state power, government power. You can call it socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it on this end, and you have anarchy on this end. And the Libertarian Party is going to be somewhere around here.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is where we're at. So in the U.S. is probably somewhere around here right now. We just got to start moving that needle back towards liberty. That's what I'd like to see happen.
Yeah, definitely. Dave, I'll shake your hand, but next time.
All right.
Thank you for being with us, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I appreciate it.